Recording.
Getting to, because Boomer usually
Oh, I don't understand. How about you? Sorry. You can stop me because I'm a Gemini. Sure. I'm an Aries. You're an Aries. You can be sorry about that too. Is that working?
Mhm.
Yeah. I thought there was maybe. Really? He's
We
again.
got the
Yeah,
internet's
kind of
not
was down.
All right, well, it's 7 o'clock, so call this meeting to order.
First one, you're having a text meeting.
So back to 7 o'clock. I'm very punctual. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, clerk can call the roll, please.
Mr. Bittner,
Here.
Mr. Lunder,
Here.
Mrs. Thompson, Mrs. Moore here, Mr. Shaboo,
I'm here.
Mr. Morris,
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here. All right, approval of the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections for the minutes of December 14th, 2021? Regular meeting of council.
No, I move they be accepted, approved as accepted. And I second it.
Motion made by Mr. Morris, seconded by Mr. Shaboo. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder.
Aye.
Mrs. Moore, same. Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson,
Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye. Meeting minutes for the organizational meeting of council from January 3rd, 2022. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes?
I move that they be approved as. Approved.
Motion made by Mr. Morris. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Shaboo. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner,
Yes. Aye.
Mr. Lunder.
Aye.
Mrs. Moore. Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye. All right. Correspondence. Clerk, do we have any correspondence tonight?
I have no correspondence tonight, Mr. President.
Does any member of council have correspondence tonight? Okay. Administrative and department head reports. Mayor and Safety Director, Mr. Eva.
Good evening.
Good
Mr.
evening.
Johnson, members of council, the public here this evening. I'd like to start off with, I know Brandon just got here and would mind standing up, and Brandon is on the agenda tonight. We are looking for council to approve his appointment to the Board of Zoning Appeals and also to the local tax review board. Brandon.
Good morning. No, used to be in school. Sorry. Good evening. It's an honor to be here for you, Council President, Mayor, board members. I'm excited for the opportunity to serve in our place. Been here, it's my second stint here, here about 4 years now. Been about 2 years and been here and a half, and the year before that, I was also in our lake. So, parent of 2, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old. Wife spent her entire life in Raymond Lake and Green Parkway. I'm a society servant. So, hit the ground running.
Thank you. Any questions for Brandon?
Yes. Mr. Towns, I happen to have been present when you did your Menor Racial Justice Week meeting down at Menor Beach Park. And I have to be honest with you, I walked away from there very frustrated. Some of the comments you made down there, such as it's okay for people of a certain persuasion to use the N-word, but nobody else, was one big one. And I remember there was a gentleman there by the name of John who stood up and took the mic from you and said, you walk into his house and use that word, he doesn't care if it's your mother, you'll be asked to leave, which kind of put a bad taste in my mouth about you and your beliefs. And well, when you're in for school board, a lot of people I know of, that, and I wish some of them were here tonight, said you had a lot of postings on your Facebook about trying to organize people to boycott Republican-owned businesses. I'm concerned about those stances and how that's going to affect the CRA or any of the other committees that you're appointed to. I would like some time to get to know you outside of a public meeting, if that's possible. I would rather us not vote for that tonight.
Do I respond to that?
Sure.
So the first point about using the N-word, that is a hotly debated topic in the Black community, right? So I think that my position is always to respect the space, to respect people and the position that they come in with. John Sanders, who I'm very familiar with, call each other friends. We differ in opinion. And not so much whether we say the word, whether we have the right to look at another person with every bit of right to claim Blackness as their own and tell them what to do with the word. I don't use the word. There's people in my family who use the word. And that's their prerogative. The history of the word is dirty. But if you have experience with minoritized or dehumanized, disenfranchised communities, you will understand that what happens a lot of times is that we take words, we take derogatory terms, and we reclaim them. If you think about the LGBT community and how they reclaim certain words, if you, my wife will talk about how she can call her sister something that no one else can call her. That there's this process of reclaiming your own dignity as a person of color, particularly as a Black person, that happens when you use that word. So if someone is using the N-word in a reclamation process, I accept that. Do I do it myself? Absolutely not. So I understand the position you have because it has it's a loaded word, a lot of negative history and baggage. But there are people who accept that and then move forward in a reclamation space with that word. So that I say, I understand, I don't use it, but if that's how you choose to use it, so be it. The second point about what happened on the interracial justice page regarding the Republican-owned businesses. To clarify, there was a post that was made by a gentleman wanting to identify Trump-supporting businesses, not necessarily Republican businesses. So I think depending on his persuasion, those could be two different things. And he had made a post and the individual started to identify those Trump-supporting businesses in a manner to not support those businesses. That was a post that had been taken down because it didn't really represent what we wanted to represent. We are the group that exists to identify and to address racism, wherever it may be, whether in ourselves or others, and identifying Republican businesses or Trump-supported businesses does not mean that that's not in line with the mission of the group. So that's why that post was taken down. I family members, so I'm not going to go that route. But the point was not to highlight, address, or to attack Republican-supported businesses or Republican businesses. And even the idea behind addressing or identifying Trump-supported businesses didn't align with our purpose. And that's how we took it down.
You mentioned John Sanders. Is that the John that was down at the Hunter Beach Park?
Yes, sir.
I liked him. He spoke the truth. I liked him.
So truth is a matter of persuasion again. So I understand that aligns with what you believe, and that is, you're very right. But I spoke the truth too, so I think it's always important that even though we can disagree, like I said, me and John, we disagree, and we can sit down and we can have lunch, and we can acknowledge each other for everything that we are, everything we bring to the table, and even in our disagreements, find unity. So yes, John is a great guy.
Yes, he is.
I'll just say, thank you for volunteering to apply for these positions. I thankfully, I thank having a diverse group of people on our committees, diversity of thought, diversity of actions. We come from different political parties and I'm okay with that, I welcome that, exchange and that interaction. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just to throw in, I got to know Brandon throughout the last couple of years, and as you know, Brandon is our 2020 Citizen of the Year. And why is that? Because of the way he handles his business. He's an intelligent human being, and I'm very thankful that he's in our community. I approached him with these positions. We sat down New Year's Eve, we talked for an hour about these positions, and he's very happy to have the opportunity to serve on these boards, committees, whatever we need in the community. And, I thank Brandon for being here tonight and standing up and, taking questions and answering those in an intelligent manner.
Anybody else?
Mr. Towns, I do want to thank you for your honest answers.
Absolutely. And I do want to say, I think the spirit behind your question was, what does it mean for the two committees for me to be on the committee? And that is a very valid question. That is a very valid concern. And that's one that you have a responsibility to ask, because you represent our community. So I do really appreciate you taking the time to ask that, but then also to answer it. I am much more than a comment that was made in that. I am much more than my position on whether the N-word is acceptable or not. And if anyone wants to know more, we can I more than welcome us sitting down, anyone sitting down, having conversation upon conversation, so you can understand who I am, my story, why I'm excited about serving our community, and what I can bring to the table. So not perfect by any means. I have laws just like all of us, but trying to do my best part.
What do you teach?
I'm an assistant principal, high school,
What did you teach?
science,
At what level?
high school,
You
high
poor
school,
guy.
middle school, 7 through 12.
You poor guy.
Yeah, it's tough, but I love it.
Anybody else have any questions? Thank you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
I do have additional information, a couple memos from Chief John Beeling. This memo went to Councilwoman Desiree Thompson, Councilwoman Michelle Moore, firefighter Dustin Langford, firefighter Justin Corby, firefighter Dan, and communications officer Jennifer Cogman, patrol officer Brian Skerritt, patrolman Clay Bradick and his wife Cassie, patrolman Andrew Mastrocola and his friend Grace. This is for the 2021 Santa Blue Health Cruise program. On behalf of our entire department, I would like to thank all of you for participating in this year's 6th annual Santa Blue Health Cruise program. Your involvement by volunteering your time is what makes this event possible. This year's event was a great success. We had another great group of 19 children who each received $200 gift cards to purchase gifts. The pizza party, magician, and of course the visit from Santa were enjoyed by all. As your help, these children were treated to a very special evening. Thank you again for helping to spread the joy of the holiday with some of our residents who are less fortunate. Another memo from Chief Keeling to Officer Tina Messenger. I want to thank you for taking the time on behalf of the entire department for again spearheading our 6th annual Santa Blue Health Cruise program. Once again, the community response was tremendous and the time and effort you put into this year's program was most appreciated. Thanks for the generosity of all donors and volunteers. We were able to bring some Christmas holiday cheer to another great group of children. Thank you again, Tina, for helping to spread the joy of the holiday with some of our residents who are less fortunate. I just want to go over the fire department, the report for December 2021. For December 2021, there were a total of 148 calls for service. Breakdown as follows: 93 were rescue EMS calls. Of those 93, 2 were for an overdose requiring Narcan. There were 25 fire service calls, 30 invalid assist calls. As far as training in December, Lieutenant Conti, Lieutenant Langford, and firefighter Sedmak completed the Blue Card Command Training Program. This training consists of 50 online hours of study, followed by 25 hours of hands-on experience, for a total of 75 hours of training. The Blue Card Command System is the fire industry standard for incident command and is utilized throughout Lake County. On Sunday, December 12th, fire department held the annual Santa rounds. We were able, of course, to pass out candy canes to the residents to celebrate Christmas. Also, during the week of December 13th through the 17th, the new exhaust removal system was installed in the fire base and is now in service. This system actively removes the harmful vehicle exhaust that has been linked to firefighter cancer. For the full year 2021, there were a total of 1,382 calls for service. This was an increase of 147 calls from 2020 and the highest number of calls for service in the history of the department. The call breakdown is as follows. There were 836 rescue EMS calls. Of those, 11 were for overdose requiring Narcan. 274 fire service calls and 272 invalid assist calls. Also received an email over the weekend from President Johnson. There were questions concerning appointments to boards and committees, which the concern is my appointments versus council's appointments. Going back to April 13th of 2021, Mrs. Bartone reported to council. This local board of tax review was determined to be incorrect. So the makeup of that board was incorrect. There were 3 openings to the tax review board, and CRA positions are still open. If anyone has thoughts or ideas for someone to volunteer, please let me know. This was addressed to council. Next meeting, April 27th, 2021. Mr. Bittner asked Mrs. Bartone how many had to be appointed for the tax review board. Mrs. Bartone responded, 3 members, 2 appointed by the legislative authority, being council. This is back in April. We've heard nothing since from any member of council. Being the case, we can't do business without people that volunteer, similar to what Brandon's here to do, on our boards, commissions, and whatever we have. If we don't have people for the Board of Zoning Appeals, what do we do when we have questions? We have residents that have cases. Planning and Zoning Commission. Almost every month we have a meeting. I know this month we don't, but if we didn't have the volunteers to do that, what would we do? There was also questions about the positions that are open. You know, where is that posted? Where can I find that? Well, we have City of the Mineral Lake website, okay? If you go to the website, Office of the Mayor's report. Every month, our Secretary Jamie updates that report. Every month, in my report, it reads, if you are interested in how our city works, we have volunteer opportunities on the city's boards and commissions. There's also on the link, there's a link on the homepage of the website that goes to the newsletters that Andrea puts together. The fall 2021 newsletter, which was published September 3rd of 21, and contains a section titled Board and Commission Opportunities Available and lists the CRA program, Income Tax Board of Review, and Parks and Recreation. This newsletter is published on all of our social media sites, as we know. And if you go to the newsletter, it states, click here to submit your letter of interest. Now, I know this goes to all the Facebook pages, all the community of Better on Lake Facebook pages. This information is out there and has been out there. What I would ask is, we will continue to work to fill these positions, but I would ask council to also be on the lookout for individuals that are willing to volunteer. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Administrative Director, Mrs. Bartow.
Good evening. I don't have that much. Budget will be done by this weekend, so whenever you would like to schedule the budget review. we can move into that. That's all. I'm gonna leave it at.
Good. Law Director, Mr. Lyons, good evening.
Good evening, and following up on the mayor's end of his report. I was asked to weigh in on that issue. Taking a look at laws and how they're interpreted. It was my opinion that the two people that were already appointed to local board of tax review were actually the appointments of council. So they continue to serve at the end of this year. That was based on statutory construction rules.
If I can just clarify for people who don't know, the writing of the actual resolution to appoint the previous two members actually said appointed by Mayor Eva, not by council. So I was checking to make sure that it was still a valid.
And and all of those situations are based on a case-by-case analysis. And I thought, based on the rules of statutory construction that exist in the state of Ohio, that it was enough in that ordinance, resolution in order to support those appointments by council. When council passed it, council knew what they were doing with those appointments. So that brings up Mr. Towns, because he has two resolutions on tonight. One, the BZA, which is just a normal resolution that we do all the time. And the second one is for the Board of Tax Review. As part of the process, Johnson, I think both of us agree that this particular appointment of Mr. Towns is actually just the mayor's appointment. It's not the actual appointment. With that being said, I still don't think that there's anything wrong with approving it tonight. Okay, if you didn't approve it, wouldn't matter. Okay, but I think it creates a nice record, okay, in our minutes to show who was appointed. And there is, as in the two prior, the drafting was, I think the word I used was inartful in terms of the whereas. I think it just got pulled from an old resolution in terms of the appointment of somebody to a different board. And so we could just eliminate pursuant to Article 7, Section 7.04. And we can just say that it's appointed now. This one says it's open-ended. The mayor's appointment is an open-ended one?
Yes.
Okay, so then that's fine. Okay, so we can still pass that, but we can eliminate, that little bit of language and council. Now, council want to be strict interpretation people. Sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. They can just remove this from the agenda because it is the mayor's appointment. The mayor can then just announce, so it does go in the minutes, that Mr. Towns has been appointed as the mayor's representative, to this board to an open-ended term. And that way, there's a record that the community can, whatever council's pleasure is. Other than that, truly the mayor. So
I'll just point out that I'll be nitpicky over all the ordinances and resolutions because my signature goes on them if we pass them. So
no,
I'll make sure I'll check
I
everything.
think that nitpicking is a good idea, and I think I know, I come to the agenda meetings, and the first time I see see some of these items is at the time of the agenda meeting. And I try to keep the entire charter and all the ordinances of Mineral Lake in head. Sometimes a few of them fall out. So I'm gonna just ask Holly if she could maybe send those to me a day before so I could take a look at it, just for form, so that if there may be a correction. That way, hopefully I'll be nitpick just 50% of the time.
All right, any questions for the administrator, for the administration? Mr. Morris.
This Bartone, I was challenged the last week to try to watch or listen to any of the recordings online. Have you ever listened to any of those?
We are working on an enhanced microphone system.
Okay. Because you can't understand a single thing that's said.
It picks up most of you up there. The
Uh-huh.
problem is once you get out here, those microphones that we use have stopped working.
Okay,
I asked about 6 weeks ago to get a new plan in place. Unfortunately, our sound person got COVID for about a month. So he's supposed to get back to me in a week.
also several of the links don't work.
We have to upgrade the space.
Okay,
So we're working on it too.
and the one last thing is, there were a couple of committee meetings. They could have been planning and zoning, I'm not sure. There was no video, if it wasn't very delayed video. I don't,
Some of that is user setup issue.
you mean when they start the meeting?
Yes.
Okay,
I mean, the instructions are there, but I'm not here, so I can't always help what's happening.
can we try to improve what's happening? I know you said the instructions are there. I think they used to be in this podium or whatever.
Yeah, what are it?
Okay. To make sure that the chair of the committee understands how to use that, maybe they should be aware that they have to fire that up.
Yeah, generally, if the laptop's open, you can see if the recording is working.
Okay,
That's why I usually have it open. I mean, I'm watching it here because I just like to double check, but I don't trust Mr. Bittner, but you never know.
Good choice.
thank you.
It's a work in progress.
Okay,
Any other questions for the administration? All right, hearing none. We'll move on to the board and committee reports. Board of Zoning Appeals, Monday, December 20th, 2021.
Board of Zoning Appeals met on December 20th. We were there to discuss the property.
you need to know.
This is why she doesn't trust me.
It's just one of the reasons.
The property was 5446 Coronata. He was asking for a variance, couple different ones. Unfortunately, it was beyond the 20% BZA would be allowed to permit. At this time, it's just tabled for some further interpretation of the laws or Board of Zoning Appeals abilities. So they're going to remeet. Maybe he came up with some other ideas, but it's tabled.
All right. I don't really think organizational meeting of council needs to go into because we have the minutes of that. So we'll cover that. Open to the public to speak. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak? If you would, please state your name and address for the record. Come to the podium. Hearing none, we'll move on to legislation for council. Resolution 22-R-01. Clerk, could you please read the resolution by its title?
Resolution number 2022-R-01. A resolution confirming the appointment of Brandon M. Thomas to the Board of Zoning Appeals and declaring an emergency.
I would like to entertain a motion to correct this from the very first clause, saying Article 7, Section 7.04 to 7.03. 7.04 is Parks and Recreation. 7.03 is the Board of Zoning Appeals. So you're making a motion? Yeah. All right, so the motion is made by Mr. Bittner, second by Mrs. Moore. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner.
Aye.
Mr. Lunder.
Aye.
Mrs. Moore. Aye. Mr. Shaboo.
Aye.
Mr. Morris.
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson. Mr. Johnson. I did it again.
Aye. I am not transitioning, okay?
I'd like to motion to suspend.
All right, are there any questions on this resolution today right now?
Mr. President, if I understood Mr. Lyons correctly, we don't really need to vote on this.
No,
No, this is the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Oh, okay, I'm
The
sorry.
second one.
The second. Okay. I stand corrected. Thank you, sir.
Any questions on this resolution?
Board of Zoning Appeals meeting is scheduled for next Monday, if I'm not mistaken, at 6 o'clock.
Right,
Correct, that's correct.
So are there any motions? Anybody have any motions?
Motion to suspend.
Motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Bittner, seconded by Mr. Lunder. Any discussion on the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mrs. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
No,
Mr. Johnson,
Aye. Is there a motion? Motion for passage from Mr. Bittner, seconded by Mr. Lunder. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner.
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
aye.
Mrs. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
I abstain.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye. The motion passes. Okay. Resolution 22-R-02. Clerk, could you please read it by its title?
resolution number 2022-R-02. A resolution confirming the appointment of Brandon M. Towns to the Board of Local Tax Review and declaring an emergency.
Okay, we do not have to vote on this. We can remove it from the agenda if we so desire. It's our choice as
I
council.
make a motion that we remove it from the agenda.
There's a motion to remove it from the agenda. Is there a second? Hearing none. Okay. Is there any other motions?
Motion to suspend.
Motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Bittner, seconded by Mr. Lunder.
I apologize. Take that section out.
Correct. Thank you.
I
Thank you
apologize.
for inviting me. Before we take that motion, I did want to make a correction to amend that. If I can get a motion from replacing Article 7, Section 7.04 of the Charter with Title 4, Chapter 891, subsection 18 of the codified ordinances.
So maybe.
Is this the one that Mr. Lyons?
That's the one I was-
That section out of, or do we?
Yes, Mr. Johnson quoted section of the city income tax code, which is in our title, separate title 8. So it's 891.18. So
Yes.
that's the authority for this.
Yes.
So that's the.
Okay, so who made the motion? Mr. Lunder, who seconded it? Bittner? All right. Roll call, please. This is on the amendment.
Mr. Bittner.
Aye.
Mr. Lunder.
Aye.
Mrs. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye. Okay. Suspend the rules already?
Well, so I'll take a motion for you.
Okay, motion to suspend the rules.
We'll make that.
Made by Mr. Bittner, seconded by Mr. Lunder. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner.
Aye.
Mr. Lunder.
Aye.
Mrs. Moore.
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
No,
Mr. Johnson,
Aye. Is there motions for passage?
So made.
Made by Mr. Lunder, seconded by Mr. Bittner. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner.
Aye.
Mr. Lunder.
Aye.
Mrs. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
abstain.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
I'm so used to saying that.
All right, old business, council rules. Are there additions or changes anyone wants to make to council rules? I know a couple people emailed me. Go ahead and bring up what you're,
Yes,
Mr. Morris.
Mr. President, I had brought up, back in June, I believe it was. And actually, Preston Wolf brought it up about we should have some sort of a bio sheet for people that want to serve on these committees. And yes, I am equally as grateful to these people for volunteering, including you, Mr. Town. I do enjoy the fact that people volunteer for this stuff. They're grossly underappreciated. However, I think it, because we're being asked to approve these nominations, we should know something about them other than, yes, they live in the city. Such as, and I sent you a thing stating that, excuse me, I got glasses on. I think we should like to know, I would like to know how many years they've lived in the city, a possible educational background. Why are they seeking this appointment? possible employment skills that would help them in this appointment. Do they have any ideas to help the city move along in their appointment if approved? Preston Walk actually supported that, as well as Catherine Roos thought that was a good idea. Because many times, these people are not here for their appointments. So it's helpful to know what's going on, or who these people are. Fortunately, I heard Mr. Towns speak, so I knew something of you. But a lot of these people, like when Mrs. Schaefer came in, other than her being at a couple council meetings, I knew nothing about her. So I'd like to include that in, I believe it would be section 26 of our council rules.
Any discussion on that? I mean, I will state that, as I recall, it was just a couple of years ago that we had a vacancy on council. We had a procedure for interviewing candidates, requiring a resume, all that good stuff. When council couldn't agree on a candidate, the process was completely thrown out. It was treated more like a game show, open to anybody in the audience. Come on down, you're the next contestant on Who Wants to Be on Council. Where we didn't know anything about these people who were applying other than they were standing in front of us. And that was to apply to be up here on council, a paid position versus a volunteer position. So I'm certainly open to us getting more information from anybody who wants to apply to be on a board or a commission. But when we're dealing with a situation of we get a volunteer for a position, you know, I'm happy to do it when we have multiple people. We have to decide between people who are applying for the same position. But when we have a single person who is applying, thank you for applying, because we are not getting that multiple people. And I would love to be in that problem where we have multiple people and we need that additional information to make a decision on who should apply, who we should pick. I'm not seeing it. I haven't seen it since I've been on here. Mrs. Schaefer, you had something to say?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Before I applied for anything, I was here for almost every meeting for a whole year. In return, you never came, introduced yourself to me or asked me any questions. There's nothing stopping you from saying, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm in this board, introducing yourself to your own residents and getting to know them. If you would ask me any question, I would be more than happy to answer them.
So my inclination is that, you know, when we have an applicant, we provide all of council the letter of interest that they provide. But beyond that, you know, and I'm happy to invite the person if they wish to come and would like to come in and talk like Mr. Towns did, and I thank you for doing that. You know, if they want to speak up, but again, I'm going to say thank you for serving. Yes.
So would it be possible maybe to create a, you know, kind of get both of these to help Mr. Morris and create a form instead of a letter of intent? We fill out almost like an application, but it's not like abbreviated. Been in the city, this is who I am. You know, like abbreviated form,
You
not
want a letter of interest form.
Like a form.
like a, yes, like a formal one that, you know, could satisfy Mr. Morris and all of them, you know, something that's universal, not somebody typing up their own letter.
So that would be great, especially if it included contact information to address Mrs. Schaefer's comments. Many times, we don't know who's applying, who we're being asked to approve until we get the agenda, which is the Thursday night before that council meeting. And there's no way for me to contact you, or I know where you live, but that's because I know of you. And if I remember right, during your last appointment, you were here and you stood up at the podium and I asked you questions. And many times these appointees are not here. A lot of the times they're not here. So it's kind of like, it's difficult. And for us to put a face to it or know where to contact these people at, I'd be glad to call people and say, hey, this is who I am and I'm curious.
And I think we'd be more than happy to give you that contact information. It would just be a matter of calling Mrs. Bartone or myself to say, hey, by the way, I see Brandon Towns is on the agenda Tuesday night. Do you mind me giving him a phone call and I can talk to him or meet with him? Simple as that.
Any other comments?
I think if we start making more restrictions for people to apply for these positions, it's gonna be harder to fill them. I beg people, and when I was out campaigning this year, people asked me, what can I do? Get involved, join the board. There's plenty of openings. Call the mayor, call city hall, apply for it. That's how you get involved. That's one of the steps that you can take. And I don't think anybody that I've spoken to, except for Mr. Towns there, has made any attempt to reach out for anything. And I don't want to scare people away by being like, oh, now you have to send in your full detailed resume and all that kind of stuff. I'd like to get to know people by their, what you do, those kinds of things, but I don't need your full work history and things like that to be.
The questions I asked for, the comments I asked for, it's not a full resume, by any stretch of the imagination. And I didn't think it was overbearing.
I just don't want to scare people away more.
And nor would I.
Well, may I suggest that obviously Paul had some feelings about that. And maybe fair to give him a chance to write a few things out, maybe just a form approved by council that every candidate would fill out if he wanted. And turn into the administration that would be available to council to take a look at. And then the council to take that. And then Mr. Moore can draft, with my assistant if he wants to, just some of the parameters of that change to Rule 26. And then when it comes time to vote on the rules that we have now, somebody would make a motion to approve the rule that's previously written. Mr. Moore and then have his opportunity, to make an amendment to Rule 26. It would all be in front of you. You want to, you vote up or down that amendment. Okay, if it's approved, then it becomes part of, what would then be approved by council. If it's voted down, and what was already there. And if other people have other changes that they want, they can propose it the same way in order to amend it, unless there's a consensus going in terms of what you want in. It doesn't sound like there's a consensus right now. That would be my suggestion.
Mr. Moore, so you fine with writing up a? Sure. Great. All right. So then Mr. Morris will write that up and provide us a copy of it, and we can, we'll get some more information if we need it. So
maybe we can, Paul can have it sent out to everybody by maybe the next agenda meeting. Is that
Probably by the weekend.
Pardon?
By the weekend.
It's faster tonight. Okay, I mean,
I'll fit it into my busy schedule. You know how that retirement stuff goes. Right?
other additions or corrections to the rules? Anything you want
I
to?
came up with a couple.
go ahead.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Mrs. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. President. On page 7, section 9, where it's talking about the agenda meetings and that it specifically says in there that things have to be placed in the mailboxes. In light of our move to electronic mail and things like that, I was wondering if that's something that we need to amend to include using email, or if we have to make it both, or
What does Mr.
so that it
Lyons say?
aligns with what we're doing. Do we have to update that and change it?
I think if you say, put in the mailbox or email. I think email has become more convenient for everybody.
Yeah.
We can add, that can be added, that should seem pretty.
Whether you get boxes /email.
Yeah.
Just add the word email.
Any objection to that? Good.
I had two. Section 14, page 10, it was the last sentence. To me, it didn't read right. It's like it's missing a word. I don't know if anybody had a chance to read over that.
Which one was that?
It's,
Could you repeat that?
Section 14, page
14.
10.
Page 10.
the last sentence.
Meetings and presented, it probably should be, I'm not an English major and I was gonna ask my wife. Of their English, of their meetings and present instead of drop off. Am I right?
Yeah, it just didn't read right.
And present. to the council.
Keep minutes of their meetings and be presented to
We have
the
an
council
assistant
clerk.
principal, he should be in grammar.
They're asking you for the grammar correction of
And
this.
be
Yeah,
presented to the.
Yeah, and be presented.
And present to. Instead of present,
I believe the email.
does that make sense?
Yeah.
ED, just take the ED. Council clerk.
So and shall be presented. Does that work for everybody? We'll add shall be presented, shall be.
Shall be presented, okay.
And then-
Why don't we
Either way.
break that rule, can you please present that to her? Thank you, not a rule breaker.
Well, presented is past tense, so somehow you're going to.
Okay, and your third choice, third.
Is section 21, the posting of legislation. I know that for the ordinance and the Ohio Revised Code, we have to post it 5 places. Number 4 on the list, Cows Marathon, it's no longer Cows Marathon, it's Marathon, so this, so maybe that ordinance is changing that. And also 2, I don't know if we can change this to amend any of those 5 places to be like on the city website or on social media site, or if they have to be 5 physical places.
I'd have to take a look at what the revised code says.
It's like a whole lot.
You would think city website should be one of them. I don't.
Think
know
of
that
how
it
long it's like physical person.
I don't know if it actually says that in the revised code.
Yeah, it's really,
No,
it's really not clear, so that's why I was checking to see.
Well, I'll
Maybe
check
we
that
can
out.
make it easy, you know.
We,
Wonder?
yeah, I have one question about the rules, and that was, when we went to wards, and I brought this up years ago, a definition of awards and council at large. I would like to see it put in that the ward people basically stay in their ward to take care of their ward and not be jumping all over to other people's wards and taking complaints or conversations. Yes,
Mr. President, I do remember that conversation, and at that time, I believe they said that any councilman can take a complaint, but they should loop in the councilman of that ward. And just like if an at-ward, at-large councilman took a complaint about somebody in something with my ward, they should loop that ward councilman into that issue.
Yeah, that's
I
correct.
think that's what the resolution was it not?
I don't know that we ever made a resolution, it's more of just an
No,
agreement.
We didn't make a
amongst the
resolution,
group.
we agreed that that's how it was to be handled.
We did agree to that, that is correct.
I think by stating it like Mr. Councilman Wonder would like to be too restrictive. You
Well,
never know who the resident's gonna call and.
there's been cases where Mr. Moore, Flystone for one instance, Mr. Moore was involved with Mr. Flystone, but was not involved with Desiree, which is her ward. If you're Morris, Mr. Moore. It's just Desiree. You know, that was one that come to my attention. That's,
Well, each of us council members should respect the others.
Agreed. Okay.
I said my speech.
Any other comments on that, or any other additions or corrections, or? All right, moving on. Committee assignments, you guys all got your committee assignments? Anybody have any issues? It's good because I'm willing to change them. Try to get everybody to where they asked to be placed, so hopefully you got the committees you were asking for. Obviously, if there are multiple people applying for the same committee, then I had to make some changes, but those are now set in place. So if you want to go ahead and print out copies of those now, they should be fine. New business. Is there any new business tonight? Hearing none, we'll move on to open to the public. We'll now open this portion of the meeting to the public. If you have anything to say, please come to the podium, state your name, your address for the record. Hearing none, we will move on to announcements and settings and meetings. First up is Board of Zoning Appeals is Monday, January 17th, 2022 at 6 p.m. There was originally an ordinance committee scheduled for that date and time. However, that whole committee has been changed. So you guys would like to reset your ordinance committee.
Chair isn't here.
I have spoken with Des, and she has suggested the first or third Tuesday of the month at 6 o'clock. If that works for the committee. Otherwise, we will hold off on setting a meeting until she is available.
That's not gonna work for me.
Okay, then we will hold off on setting a meeting for the ordinance committee until the next regular meeting of council.
That's board of zone.
That's ordinance.
Or no, the one that was scheduled.
Yeah, zoning appeals is the one scheduled for Monday, January 17th.
Just a note, the last 19 years, as long as I've been around, planning and zoning, it's not the first Monday of every month. And the Board of Zoning Appeals has met the third Monday of every
Yeah, but they shifted their time. That's the whole problem.
month. Time.
Yeah, they moved to 6 o'clock rather than 7.
Mr. Morris, are any Tuesdays good for you or Tuesdays completely out?
Pretty much Tuesdays are a mess for me.
You guys can set that next meeting then at the next council meeting, and that's fine. We still have the CRA issue to deal with. Which committee was that going to go to?
Community community development.
Community development, okay. Well, we're missing one of the members of that too, so. So, shall we hold off until Mrs. Thompson's available to
Yes.
schedule that as well?
To make sure we get everybody.
Yeah, all right, so we will hold off on that. Any other committees want to meet? What about a nice budget meeting?
Finance committee.
Yeah, we all love a good budget meeting.
What works with everybody's schedule, John?
We're trying to stick with Mondays. With the open.
Yes, it will be a finance meeting, but a council of the whole. She'll be running it. I won't, well, yeah.
With administration, right?
What's that?
We do the finance meeting and then the budget meeting. Do it all.
It's all work. Now, because the chiefs and stuff have to be involved, should we get their availability before we set it or? Tell them, be here.
Do they want money? Do they not want money?
What's that?
It's always worked in the past.
Okay. Still want to stick with the weeknight?
Yes.
No, we've been doing it weeknights since I've been doing it.
Yeah,
since-
it's always been.
Yeah, not weeknight, well, not weekends, but weeknight, yeah.
Yeah.
We're not doing a Saturday 6-hour marathon ever again. I stopped that.
Monday the 24th, Monday the 31st.
How does everybody feel about Monday, the 24th at 6 o'clock?
When will we get the budget?
You said by this weekend?
It'll be done this weekend.
So
Okay, 6 P.M.
Monday the 24th at 6 p.m.
Works for me. Does anybody have any issue with Monday, the 24th? We'll check if it does, but. 6 o'clock. So that's Monday, January 24th at 6 p.m. Next agenda meeting will be January 20th at 6 p.m. The next regular meeting of council will be January 25th at 7 p.m. Does anybody else have any committee meetings they want to schedule? At least any that Mrs. Thompson's not on. Okay. Here, we have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Bittner. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Lunder. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder.
Aye.
Mrs. Moore.
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye, this meeting is adjourned. Right.